The U20 World Cup is underway, and there have been some incredible plays and moments from characters despite the less than 5 minutes and 3 chapters of content that we've currently received. But when it comes to players that I think will have a top 5 performance in the U20 World Cup, who do I think will stand atop that podium? Well, in today's video, I'm here to give you my top 5 predictions for U20 World Cup performances in this next arc. Now, obviously, I will not be including characters like Rain or Isagi since they will obviously have a top 5 performance in this arc, so yeah, I won't be including them. Everyone else though, they're fair game. Also, this video is not made in order, so my first character is not necessarily going to be the worst on this list or is necessarily meant to be like the number 1. It's just me listing off characters in whatever order I see fit. Before I get into it though, I want to leave a spoiler warning for the latest chapters and events of the Blue Lock manga, and if you are not caught up to the latest chapters, I would suggest clicking off this video now if you wish to not be spoiled. Also, join my Discord server called the New Egotist Geeks. The link to it is down below. And do me a huge favor and go check out the new channel Arrow Plus, where I plan to post non-Blue Lock related content every single week, with the first video covering Dandadan, which is going to be dropping soon, so please subscribe so you don't have to miss it. The link to it is in the description. Going into my first character, I know I said I didn't want any obvious picks like Rain or Isagi, but this first pick is pretty obvious. Let's talk about Seishiro Nagi. I really think that it's a no-brainer statement to say that Nagi is going to have an incredible comeback during the U20 World Cup arc, and I think that there is substantial evidence to support this. During the final game of PXG vs Bastard München, the overarching message of that game was discovering your 0 point and the truth of your ego, which inherently enhances your style as a player. Understanding the core of what you want as a person and why you play to begin with allowed for players like Rain, Isagi, and Kaiser to access the most peak performances of their soccer careers, with even specific characters during that game accessing their true flow states in the process, which if you saw my video talking about them, you know what I'm mentioning. When it comes to Nagi and the build up into the U20 World Cup arc, every chapter that we've seen from Nagi is essentially him returning to his 0 state. It's his own return to 0. In chapter 302, we saw him getting emotional and finally collapse under the weight of the lock-off as it finally settled into his brain. In chapter 306, we saw Nagi's desperation shine as he did everything in his power to find a way back into Blue Lock, and after being rejected, he finally hit his lowest point. In chapter 308, we see Baratsura and Nagi have a discussion where Nagi abandons his one chance to get back into Blue Lock, however it came with an ulterior motive. In chapter 310, we see Nagi and Igigiri have a conversation about their egos and dreams when it comes to being able to compete on the world stage, where his desires as a striker and player finally get fully realized. And in chapter 312, just as the U20 World Cup begins, Nagi accepts Baratsura's offer after understanding his ego and achieving his 0 state, wanting to destroy everything for that feeling of godlike ecstasy. Nagi is just one of those characters that I feel is going to have an overwhelmingly popular and incredible performance in the U20 World Cup when he finally makes his return. And not even mentioning this, he gets to be included on this list because of his future participation in the Side B project, which is inherently a part of the U20 World Cup arc. Because if we look at the final episode Nagi pages for its final chapter, and we believe that these moments here are a conclusive point towards foreshadowing of future events with Nagi and his character, I'm very excited to see what Nagi's going to do when he finally locks back in. I've seen a lot of people dissing Nagi, and I need you guys to understand this, that Nagi is the second protagonist of the story and is a very strong character when he gets motivated. Hell, even when he's unmotivated, he is still incredibly powerful. During the first selection, he tied with Bato as top goal scorer for the Stratum. In the second selection, he was the first person to beat Rin individually when it came to direct talent versus talent. In the third selection, Nagi was the only one of the core Blue Lock players that we know of, excluding Rain, to be placed in the top 6. In the U20 game, Nagi scored the opening goal against the Japan U20 team, stealing the spotlight back from Sae and the Japan team. And in the NEL, Nagi scored the greatest goal in the series, canonically known and called the goal of the century, with a play that surpassed Isagi's Metavision, Kaiser, and Gagamaru all in a single action. For those of you though who want to discredit Nagi on that point, I want you to remember that Nagi, when he gets motivated, may be able to replicate something similar to that play. Ego describes Nagi's goal as having zero reproducibility and that his talent surpasses most of humanity. However, Ego is currently speaking for Nagi as he is right now. That play currently surpassed what his talent is capable of and had zero reproducibility because of it. But in the future, when he discovers his deep and truest ego, there's nothing saying that Nagi is unable to achieve a play at that relative level again. When it comes to Nagi's overall performance, you guys already know from my explanation here that I believe he's going to have a masterclass performance, but what games do I think he's going to shine his best in? Well, I think Nagi is personally going to shine in the game against England in the group stage and France and Germany in the knockout stage. It's not an uncommon theory within the community that people believe that Nagi will return during the England match, and I'm a huge fan of that sentiment. Especially if someone like Agi is on the England U20 team, it would be nice to see Nagi return to him to show him how far he's come since being eliminated. And based on Nagi rushing out onto the pitch in his uniform, people have speculated that he'll be an impact sub during that game, and I'm a huge fan of that sentiment as well. As for the game against France and Germany, these matches for BLUELOCK as a whole are going to be important. And with Nagi having access to his true flow state and now being motivated, I'm sure he's bound to score a super goal during that match. Whether you love him or you hate him, you gotta remember that Nagi has had a lot of rivalries and parallels to Baro, and in relation to stats and overall narrative up until the NEL, they were considered very relative to each other. They actually hold my favorite rivalry in the entire series. So yeah, I did a lot of yapping in relation to Nagi, but I do believe he's going to cook really hard. Before getting into the next character, I want to remind you guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, to leave a like and subscribe to show your support for me and my content. And if you want to give some extra support, go check out my Discord server or become a member of the channel, or go sub to Arrow Plus. I'm trying to get that count to 1,000 subs as quickly as possible, so your support would mean a lot. Now for the next character to speak on, it's actually two, because I think it's relevant to talk about two characters here because they work really well as a duo. Let's talk about Julian Loki and Charles Chevalier. I feel like it's no secret that Loki is going to have an incredibly dominating performance in the U20 World Cup. Based on his performance in the NEL alone, Loki is easily the strongest player in the U20 category currently that we've seen in the series. Vastly better than the confirmed New Generation 11 that we've also seen. And based on implied dialogue and impact to France and their team, I doubt that there is any other character on the France team who is able to compete with Loki in relation to goals. So Loki very well may be likely the top goal scorer by the end of the U20 World Cup, and it wouldn't be that surprising if he was. I mean, his Godspeed weapon is literally just pace abuse, and he can single-handedly destroy an entire team with his speed if he chose to do so. As for Charles, it makes sense to me that he would be a very influential character in the U20 World Cup. During the Neo Egoist League, Loki said that the purpose of them even coming to this tournament was to build Charles up and help stoke an awakening of his own talent. If he really believes that an awakened Charles is the key to making him the best in the world, and considering Charles recently awakened due to Rin and Shido's goals in the game against Bayern München, I'd personally be worried for any team that happens to play against France. Charles, based on feats and what we've seen from him, he's already the second best U20 passer in the series, performing feats that surpass anything we've seen from Hiyori, Ness, Bachara, or Rao. His 1% gapped pass and his Rabona cross are incredibly precise plays that no other midfielder or playmaker in the series has been able to replicate or surpass in terms of quality, difficulty, or precision. And that was pre-awakening. With him now stoked to a new level and Loki wanting to become the best in the world, these two characters are going to be incredibly deadly in the U20 World Cup. As for the games that they are going to do their best in, I feel like those two matches are going to be against Nigeria in the group stage and against Japan in the knockout stage. If you saw my previous video discussing the Nigerian team, you would know that my opinion of them isn't very high, and I would even go as far to say that the Nigerian team deserves to be put on fraud watch. I mean, in the 3 chapters we've seen of them, they have failed 3 attacking plays against BLUELOCK, let BLUELOCK have 3 successful counters against them, and have even conceded a goal in less than 4 minutes. And if this is happening against BLUELOCK, I am worried to see what happens with them against France in Loki and Charles. If I'm being honest, I could see the Nigerian team getting absolutely destroyed by France, going like 8-0 against them by the end of the game, and it would be a really good way to establish France as being this god-level team. As for the rematch against Japan in the group stage, I feel like that is the point in which we'll see a Loki and potentially a second Charles evolution. When it comes to Loki's talent, we have really only seen him abusing his pace. But from some dialogue in episode Nagi, it would be very interesting to see Loki face death and fear and evolve under that pressure. But I really think that Loki and Charles are very obvious picks for characters that are going to just absolutely demolish people in the U20 World Cup. Loki is definitely taking the golden boot, and Charles is definitely getting the most assists. But there are two characters who could steal that title from Loki and Charles in their respective categories, and they are actually the next characters to talk about in this video. Those characters being Michael Kaiser and Alexis Ness. Kaiser and Ness being on this list should be pretty obvious, as Kaiser is one of the most narratively important characters when it comes to any rivalry in the series, and we have Ness as hinting at importance and awakening at the end of the PXG game for justification of this. To speak on Kaiser individually though for a minute, I've seen too many people dogging on Kaiser, calling him mid, and you guys are just delusional. Kaiser is one of the best individualized players in this series, has one of the greatest weapons in this series, and is being built up by the current #1 in the world as his future rival. The entire narrative importance of this story is pointing towards Kaiser becoming the next Noah Noah, the next best striker in the world, and people fail to acknowledge it. Not to mention, Kaiser only just recently discovered the core for his ego and was given an environment to play his best in, being the restrictive space created by Isagi, to which he only was able to be given that space for like a third of the game. People want to dog on Kaiser for being worse than Rin when you realize that Kaiser wasn't even in his ideal space for the majority of that game, while Rin was always in his ideal environment during this match. Hell, teaming up with Isagi made his environment even worse for him. Kaiser is still one of the best characters we've seen in the series, and you have to acknowledge that. And going into Ness's character development for a minute, Ness awakened during the final play of the PXG game and discovered his true ego as well. Afterwards, he told Kaiser that he wants to cast a spell on his broken soul with his own ego, implying that Ness wants to make Kaiser the best in a new way. Ness was always a talented player, but was always limited in his creativity due to Kaiser's manipulative behavior and abuse towards him during their time at Bastion München. But now, he's doing things for his own sake. This will allow him to expand the creativity that he's able to control and manipulate on the field. I also see a lot of people compare Ness's passing ability and the potential he has with this new awakening to that of Charles. Now, I'm not here to agree or disagree on that statement. All I can say is that in the U20 World Cup, Kaiser and Ness's new chemical reaction is 100% going to decimate teams. Now, for the game that they are going to do their best in, I feel like the match against Japan, if they happen to play against Japan, will be the match that Kaiser and Ness show off their newest evolution and chemical reaction. My prediction is that Kaiser is going to learn how to predict and control his ego on all fronts to allow for a balance of hyperfixation and rationality, which would allow for him to be on par with Isagi. But I also believe that Kaiser will be able to use his Magnus Impact without the need to stop the ball completely. I feel like out of anything that Kaiser could use to evolve, those two core elements of his playstyle would make him an incredibly deadly striker if he were to enhance them. As for Ness, we'll continue to see more of his original ego and unchained talent, casting spells on the field with his passes, which will undoubtedly let Kaiser shine his best. But these two guys are going to be some serious trouble going into the U20 World Cup. Going into our next character, I know I said we didn't want any obvious picks here, but the next character to talk about is Sae Itoshi. When it comes to Sae, despite only playing in the knockout stages, I feel like his performances will be one of the more memorable ones. Mostly for the fact that he's going to be putting Hiyori out of a job. Sae is a new generation 11 that a lot of people like to put on the bottom pedestal when it comes to skill, saying how he lost to pre-NEL Rin and it makes him the worst of the bunch because of that, and I just don't believe that to be true. If you reread the U20 game and the backstory between Rin and Sae, you will see that Sae was only playing at max to the level he was during the Night Snow Day for the purpose of testing Rin to see if he has decided to play as his own person or continue to play as his brother. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. When it comes to Sae's performances, it's clear to see why he will be one of the most dominating characters in the U20 World Cup. On the BLUELOCK Japan team alone, Sae returning easily puts him in the top 3 in terms of skill, on par with Isagi and Rin in relation to ranking. And in really every capacity, Sae is just a much better Hiyori, meaning chemical reactions with the top strikers will lead to incredibly flashy and deadly goals to be scored. As for the game that Sae will shine his best in, I think the match against Spain is an easy pick. We haven't seen much of Sae, but from the small moments we have seen of him and his return in chapter 307 and 308, we can somewhat speculate that Bunny and Sae have some sort of rivalry or relationship to each other. And with us all wanting to know exactly what happened during Sae's time in Spain, I think that this game will shine some light on that. There's also a couple of things I would love to see in relation to Sae with the U20 World Cup. For example, I would love to see a Shido and Sae chemical reaction fail. Shido x Sae during the U20 game was an incredibly destructive chemical reaction that produced two of the best goals that Shido has ever scored in the series. And with his return inevitable, a lot of fans are excited to see another Sae and Shido chemical reaction. But I want to see it fail. When it relates to Shido as a player, he truly isn't someone that has evolved like the rest of the players in Blue Lock. Seriously, if you compare 3rd selection Shido to current Shido, there are no differences in physical or technical abilities. Everything he was doing then, he could do right now. And that's something that I've always remarked in relation to Shido being behind everyone in terms of skill. He's hard carried to the level of top tiers by a pastor who can turn his impossible dreams and plays into something tangible, but as an individual, he is yet to evolve. And for that final point, the same can be said for Sae. We haven't seen enough of Sae previously or currently to warrant an evolution from him, and with him already having an incredible level of talent, I would love to see him evolve further. I mean, we all saw Kaiser evolve despite being the level that he's currently at. Why can't we see the same for Sae? And by failing a chemical reaction with each other, it would force Sae to evolve and create better chances and plays for the striker, while it'll also force Shido to evolve to a level where he is truly able to compete with the other strikers at their individual peak level. Sorry for the Shido rant, but I feel like it was relevant to Sae here. And for the last character to talk about, it's actually one of my favorite underrated characters in the entire series, and I don't care what you have to say. Let's talk about Rensuke Kunigami. The key factor here that I think we need to focus on when it relates to Kunigami is the wild card. We still need a wild card backstory. In the Barcha match and even before, we got little context about the event itself, which turned our lovable Kunigami into the Dark Horse striker we know of today, but we don't know the exact contents in which this event occurred. And with recent events during the PXG game, we know that Kunigami's ego is becoming unsealed, and he's slowly becoming a character more compatible with our main characters again. When it relates to games that Kunigami could perform his best in, I don't really have an idea. The only game that he may perform his best in may be England, and my reasoning is a little bit weird here. When you look at how Kunigami liked to play, his previous mentality and overall character development during the 1st and 2nd selection before the wild card, Kunigami was very similar to Chris Prince. Seriously, when you compare the two characters, Kunigami could have been turned into the next Chris Prince if he did not go to the wild card. Both use their physiques to leverage their plays during a game, both are the only two characters confirmed with knuckleball techniques, and both, to a capacity, were labeled as hero. If Kunigami never went to the wild card, going to England likely would have been his choice in the new Egoist League, and he likely would have been turned into a mini Chris Prince. If you guys want a video on that, like a what if, let me know because I would love to break it down. But anyways, the point I'm making here is that because Kunigami likes to play like Prince, he could awaken in the match against England because Prince is English. I know, it isn't the best logic, but that's all I got here. I feel like at some point during this game, we'll see Kunigami be played as a man marker like he did against Shido, and at that point, we will get some wildcard stuff and see him return his original ego and become a hero again. Recently, Bachira, Chigiri, and Isagi are all getting their time to shine, and we really need some Kunigami love here. There's some art I found of the Egoist 4 replicating their chemical reaction from the Team V game, and I'm just saying, I need to see this happen. And those were just the characters that I believe will have a huge impact on the U20 World Cup and have an absolutely dominating performance. Now you can say whatever you want about my predictions here, but these are just my predictions, and if you disagree, too bad, so sad. But aside from that, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. I just want to say thank you so much to all the members of my channel who help support me and my content. And if you want to earn some awesome benefits like they do, like getting your name mentioned in the Blue Lock New World movie, become a member yourself and help support me more moving forward. Also, join my Discord server and go sub to the Arrow Plus channel if you're interested in getting any more involved with our amazing community. As for the question of the video though, who do you think will dominate the U20 World Cup? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, I've been Arrow, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.